Have you ever wondered what is the actual point of reading those useless books that teachers force you to waste your time reading? Or why movie producers even create movies such as One Night in the Moon in the first place? It may be challenging to see the purpose of all these texts and values they have, but if you actually pay attention to the text and don't fall asleep halfway through, the true purpose of these are unveiled through a 1930s theme, which takes me back to the age of my parents. Throughout One Night in the Moon, we gain a deeper understanding of outback Australia during the early 1930s. We understand key themes such as racism, land ownership, and gender roles. Now, I'll give it to Miss Burns, she picked a text that isn't as dry as the Sahara Desert. Sorry, Amanda. A true film using perfect film techniques in order to really put us as the audience in that set time. I mean, I felt like I was sitting next to Albert having a beer with him myself. This film is perfect at allowing us to understand the value of this text and understanding its entire purpose, because Perkins didn't spend hours upon hours directing this movie for nothing. The value of the text is purely based on the audience's ability to connect with it. Just as Lego bricks connect with each other, Perkins' ability to demonstrate this through racism really gives us ideas of how Indigenous Australians were treated during these times. In scene 1, Jim expresses, "No blacks on my land." I mean, how is that allowed? If you said that today, you'd be beaten up with a cricket bat. Perkins uses the background sound of a violin to spark tension, along with Jim's blatantly forceful and aggressive tone towards innocent Albert, who has done nothing wrong. I mean, just look at the guy's facial expressions. However, Jim's stereotypical ideology forces these racial comments onto Albert. I mean, the poor guy. Give him a break. Perkins' clever use of film techniques, such as the mid-shot of Rose showing the window and the positioning of Jim being in the middle of Albert and the detectives, puts him in a spotlight, whereas it allows the audience to understand his authority. This makes it very easy for us to understand the stereotypical racism through Perkins' techniques, as the violin allows us to mentally feel against Jim, which is the same with his aggressive tone. This is also demonstrated through the mid-shot of Rose, as it allows us to feel a personal connection, as if we were his mate that drank beers on weekends, yet again. Because these camera angles position Albert off-center and further away, which indicates to us he's unwanted in this white family's lives. Jim's racist comments prove his stubbornness and obsession with the land being his. Imagine if Jim said something like this nowadays. Jim doubles down on his hatred towards Indigenous Australians through his hymn, "This Land Is Mine." Jim's dead singing, by the way, with the bagpipes and guitar in the background, allows us to really value Jim's true beliefs. It is no longer just a statement or mistake, but this is his true belief and how he was raised due to societal standards during the 1930s. I'm starting to think this movie is more of a musical. Maybe that's why it's so easy to value. Maybe this movie is like listening to the Red Hot Chili Peppers or even Coldplay. Perkins hooks the audience with catchy phrases throughout the song, which significantly expresses Jim's strong stance on ownership. We can also see the pride in Jim's face through his facial expressions shown and camera shots used as the close-up on the face. "They won't take it away" specifically refers to the Indigenous Australians, and even more specifically Albert. This guy is a proper sicko who has pure hatred for Indigenous Australians who have no goals other than to help him. I mean, imagine your daughter was lost and some guy offered to help find her. I'm pretty sure 99% of people would help. Not say, "Get off my land," but maybe that's just me. Anyway, Perkins perfectly demonstrates to the audience how Indigenous Australians were automatically seen as a disadvantage to society, which puts significant value on the text, as Perkins perfectly uses this scene to get her point through to us. Finally, we can see the same song but through Albert's POV, where Albert changes the lyrics to "This land is me." This short quote expresses what the land means to Albert and how he is in power of who owns the land. He's not in the power of who owns the land, but the land chooses people instead. Perkins' use of crosscuts between Jim and Albert's face creates a split line of wall which compares and contrasts the two ideas. Nature such as the soaring wedge-tailed eagle represents freedom, opening up the idea of freedom of the land, allowing all individuals, regardless of culture and identity, to be a part of the land. All of these ideas allow us to see the significant standards of racism in the 1930s compared to the light sprinkle of racism nowadays. And it creates a visual idea of what it was like being an Indigenous Australian during this time, which is why it's important we value the text. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm definitely Team Albert. Gender roles had an important part in allowing the audience to understand the value and importance of the text. In a world full of Andrew Tates, we can still see how gender roles, masculinity, and femininity is still a challenge today. However, having a look back at the 1930s, it wasn't even always beliefs. It was just how it went. Perkins allows us to explore the life of a woman in the 1930s through the character Rose. Rose is the wife of Jim, who has little to no say in any decisions he makes, and she's overall limited in her power. In scene 2, we can see through the use of a wide shot how it is used to make Rose look powerless and Jim look in control, which greatly summarizes how the household goes. Jim perfectly represents Big Andrew Tate thinking, oh, I'm all tough, and poor Rose has to suffer from this egotistical man. The lighting hiding their face perfectly proves how they want to hide their identities as they are coming to realize the mistake they have made. Well, Jim made. Rose is unable to speak for herself, almost like a literal child is told not to say things. We can also see in scene 3 how she does this almost if a little kid is sneaking out her room to grab a chocolate at night. She's trying to find Rose with Albert, and she's doing this for the love of her daughter. But through her actions, this really allows us to see her true identity as a mother, not a woman in Jim's shadow. Through Rose's lyrics, I don't want to know this proves our previous point of Perkins' decision to use lighting to hide their faces. This is proving this as it's almost as if she doesn't want to know what happens. They are both regretting their decisions. Perkins' use of a tilted angle with zoom significantly emphasizes her intense emotional state. Rose has challenged cultural norms through taking charge of the search and inviting Albert to lead. Finally, in the Rose screaming from the nightmare scene, we can see that the loss of Rose has kicked her natural instincts in, almost like your mum yelling at you when you were little for trying to run on the road. This is what Rose has nightmares of as she is being teased and the capability to save her girl, but sadly can't. Perkins uses the reflective moonlighting and close-up to emphasize her scream, along with some emphasis on the white noise as the music suddenly stops. Are we understanding this value now? Finally, land ownership is a pretty important part of the film. I mean, the catchy jingle that made the whole movie for me is purely about land ownership. This is demonstrated through Jim as he sings, "This land is mine," blatantly putting us in his sick head to understand what he truly believes. And yep, you guessed it, he believes that it is only the land and that is a typical white, ignorant man during these times. This is proven through Jim's 10 out of 10 acting, which I've seen better from Under Nines at Hunter Drama. We can also see the idea of land ownership through Albert's different perspective, as we can see his cultural beliefs reflect the land's ability to be shared equally. This is the battle of selfish versus humble, and we all know who's going to win. My bets are on humble. Albert's willingness to acknowledge the land as itself and not mine reflects his true personality. I mean, to be honest, this Albert bloke reminds me of myself. Finally, when Jim says, "I drove all kindness from my door," this is another example of this guy finally realizing after days of searching for his daughter that he made the mistake of being arrogant. I mean, he still claims my door, but honestly, we'll give him the door. I mean, it's better than my land. The use of reprise sends chills through my spine and demonstrates how significant the idea of ownership is in the film, as it represents more than just grass and dirt, but arrogance and denial of relationships. Wow, what a film. So basically, all these small techniques such as sound production and lighting, which might not make sudden impact, actually entirely change how we view every scene and what it personally means to us. Perkins has done herself a madness here. I mean, to be completely honest, if it wasn't for the fact I was in a dressing gown in a white suburban neighbourhood drinking hot chocolate with marshmallows, I would think I was there right next to Albert trying to find Emily. However, let's finish on a serious note to impress Miss Burns. Throughout the key themes in One Night at the Moon, Perkins allows us to vision how this text helps us confront uncomfortable truths about identity and power, both then and now, hence why the text is so valuable to us as the audience. Thank you.